Hello there, thrill seekers. Today's Friday flashback comes from August 22nd, 2009 in Frankfurt, Germany. It's from a talk that I used a few months ago or a few weeks ago, I don't remember, but I used a different portion of it. In this portion, I am talking about the question that I've been discussing this week, which is what happens, what to do about meditation when it doesn't feel like it's doing anything. And I am reading from Dogen's Fukan Zazengi, which is his instructions on how to do Zazen. Is it Fukan Zazengi? No, wait, it's Bendoa. It's from Jijuyu Zanmai. Sorry, it's from Bendoa. Anyway, I'm talking about Dogen's ideas about whether Zazen is still Zazen if it doesn't feel like Zazen. And this morphs into a discussion of whether meditation is a selfish practice, which is a question that comes up a lot for us who meditate. And this is one answer I give, and I've given other answers too. Basically, I feel like meditation is to get myself ready to be able to deal with the world in a way that is right. You know, that's what establishing the balanced state is. And it's not just about me. It's about what I put into the world, and that's what meditation is for. So you'll see me talk about that. It's a kind of low-key talk. It was probably done early in the morning. I'm not really sure. So I'm a little bit. I'm not like a fire and brimstone preacher in this one. I'm more like, you know, the one of those boring Presbyterian ministers or something. I don't know. Maybe it's not so boring. I don't know. But we'll see. Anyway, here you go. Also, hey, here's a question for you folks. My publishers have asked me to put together questions to give to interviewers who interview me about my new book, and I'm having trouble coming up with questions. So if you have any questions about my new book, put them in the comments below. It doesn't matter that you haven't read it. That's fine. Just if you have any questions that you'd like to hear an interviewer ask me about my forthcoming book, go ahead and put them in the comments. And don't forget, my donations information is at the end of the video. That is how I get supported, so I really appreciate those donations. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't gotta donate if you don't want to donate. Anyway, here, let's look at me in August of 2009 in Frankfurt, Germany. But he has this idea that Zazen is this very powerful thing that cuts through everything, regardless of whether you yourself are aware of its value or not. As he says, the state is not dimmed by the views of these individuals themselves, because the state in the quietness without intentional activity is direct experience. So this is something that I don't know, it's something I've been talking about for a couple of years, because it took me 20-some years to finally kind of get the idea that Zazen still occurs even if you think it's the worst period of Zazen that any human being has ever done in history of the entire meditation for the last 2,500 years. Because mine is usually like that. And I can't really describe exactly how this happened, but it happened one day during a sesshin where I kind of caught on to the fact that Zazen continued even in spite of my own misunderstanding of what was going on. And the only kind of comparison I can give, which isn't a terribly good comparison, would be like thinking that jogging isn't effective just because your mind is all scattered while you're jogging. It doesn't. We usually separate mind and body there, and think that we can listen to the iPod. I don't understand people who jog with the iPods on. By the way, how come they don't get run over all the time? I would not jog or ride a bicycle. I don't know, you see this in Europe, but you see this in California all the time, especially. People like giant headphones on, riding bicycles or jogging. I don't know how they can be aware of what's going on. Anyway, but we separate these things all the time. And
And the Zazen practice it does have this effect, whether you're aware of it or not. And sometimes your very unawareness of it is useful to the practice. It's just the state of your mind at the time, and you can't, it's all, a lot of it's based on, I don't want to say karma, but I'll say karma. It's a lot based on what you put into the system before you got to your cushion. And there's not much you can do about that because it's already been done. So you just have to kind of go through that. And eventually, Zazen becomes a little clearer. And I also like this one. All beings who receive and utilize this water and fire spread the influence of the Buddha in the original state of experience, so that those who live and talk with them also are all reciprocally endowed with the limitless Buddha virtue. So those who live and talk with them also. I like that. A lot of the objections that I hear to Zazen practice or to meditation practice in general is the idea that it's a very selfish thing to do, and shouldn't we go out and help the world instead of doing the Zazen, which is very selfish and very based on me. And I don't really think that's a valid way of looking at it, because the Zazen practice you do does help the outside world. Because what it does is it helps clarify your own day-to-day or moment-to-moment interaction with everybody that you meet and talk to and do anything with. And that has a tremendous effect that you shouldn't really minimize or put aside. A lot of people want to go and do something to help, and great. It's wonderful to do those things. But if your approach is still motivated by your own ego, even if it seems like the wonderfulest thing in the world, often you're doing more harm than good when you go out and try to fix things. It's funny that sometimes this is a contrast between the Christian view and the Buddhist view, but in purest terms, this is very much present in Christianity. The saying Jesus has about you can't take the speck out of your brother's eye until you've removed the beam from your own eye. So it's the same idea. But so this idea of going out and doing great things is wonderful, but the practice itself is something that you're doing as much for yourself as for everybody that you interact with, because you're just trying to get yourself together. It's like the other analogy is when you're on the air. If you're on an airplane, they tell you when mask falls, you should adjust your own mask before you adjust the mask of somebody else. And there's the good reason for that is that if you don't adjust your own mask, you're not going to be able to help anybody else. Let's see. There's a lot of this mystical stuff in here. Zazen, even if it's only one human being sitting for one moment, thus enters into mystical cooperation with all dharmas and completely penetrates all times. And it therefore performs within the limitless universe the eternal work of Buddha's guiding influence. I don't know if that's in there. Yeah. Therefore, even if only one person sits for a short time, because this Zazen is one with all existence and completely permeates all time, it performs everlasting Buddha guidance within the inexhaustible Dharma world in the past, present, and future. Zazen is equally the same practice and same enlightenment for both the person sitting and for all Dharmas. It's pretty much the same idea. I think this is the official Sotoshu translation that they use here. So there's this idea that Zazen is something you're kind of partaking in, which I always find useful. I think that's kind of my view lately on life itself. We kind of imagine that, we tend to imagine that the world or the universe is a stage, and we're kind of separate from the stage, and we're acting within this stage independently of it. And we can go around and do the things. Like were in this room and I could go run back to the door and run up here and do all these things independently of what the room does. But I think a better way of understanding the way things work is that we're all kind of manifestations of the universe, whatever it is. And we're not really independent of it. We're kind of doing, we're kind of, what is it? There's a line in, I believe, oh jeez. It's the chapter in Shobogenzo where Dogen talks about Kannon. I think the chapters are actually called Kannon. Kannon is Bodhisattva of compassion. But he talks about, I think it's the chapter where he talks about how each human being is like the eyes and ears of the universe, or something like that. Which I think is a really beautiful poetic expression, and also a good way of describing how, at least the Buddhist philosophical view of what human beings are. So, you have the Christian view, which is generally that we are souls, and each soul is independent of other souls, and the soul dies and goes to heaven or hell, and all this thing. And the Buddhist view is completely different from that, which is that we are the eyes and ears of the universe, of something much bigger. And I always think of that something much bigger as God, but then other people object to the use of the word God, but I still use it. I kind of grew up, I don't know how you are, but I grew up with not really any religious indoctrination, so the word God doesn't have a lot of the spooky meanings to me as it does for lots of people. So I didn't have a religious upbringing at all. I didn't have an unreligious upbringing. Religion was just, something nobody cared about in my family. I'm the first one to care about religion in my family. Yeah. And one of the things I actually added into this that they didn't have in the version we chanted was that last thing. Even if all the countless Buddhas in 10 directions as numerous as sands of the Ganges tried with all their power and their Buddha wisdom to calculate and comprehend the merit of one person's zazen, they could not even get close. Yeah, fuck you. Which I kind of like, because it's a lot of the ideas in Dogen's writing and in other Zen writing, but certainly Dogen is he uses this point a lot, is that the Zazen experience has incalculable merit, whereas you might think of, there might be some great Buddha out there doing something on Jesus or Mahatma Gandhi or whoever you think about, but that this actual sitting practice that you're doing is something really profound. Yeah. So I think